Okay, hello everyone, and welcome again to another beautiful interview I've arranged. And this time I have the real honor and privilege to talking to my friend Matt Scoletti. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. I know we're going to be friends for a long period of time, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Now, I just want to do you a quick introduction just to do it. This is Matt Scoletti, as I say, an entrepreneur, author, professional speaker, and philanthropist. He's a two-time world record holder, a five-time physique bodybuilding champion. He's been featured in luminaries such as Flex magazine. He's 40 under 40 recipient, an American Ninja Warrior competitor, a six-time, yes, count them, a six-time Tough Mudder finisher, a distinguished Toastmaster award recipient, and if that wasn't glorious enough, a Navy SEALs 20 times Hell Week survivor. Matt Scoletti, my man, a pleasure to have you here. And we'll get straight into it. Just on that sentence I finished, Navy SEALs 20 times Hell Week survivor. Can you tell us more about that?
So I need to qualify that, and you did your homework. That was a very impressive intro. I'm blown away by that. So I've done a couple different events. I've never been in the military, but I've trained with ex-military and current military members. And there was an event, there was a couple different events. One was in California, and I think they called it at the time 20x, because you wanted to 20x where you thought you were in life.
Yeah.
And it was an overnight event that you basically just tried to survive. And it was extremely intense, and it was hardcore, and it was fun. And I met some amazing people. And then, like 2 years later, I flew to Chicago we actually did this to raise money for the Navy SEAL Foundation. And this was special too, because it was a 12-hour Murph challenge. I don't know if you ever heard of this Murph challenge, but you run a mile, then you do 300 squats, 200 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, and then you run another mile. And that's the Murph. And we did it for 12 hours. Like, you tried to see how many times you could complete this in 12 hours. And they had a couple of Navy SEALs, active SEALs there, sort of encouraging us and rooting us on and sharing stories. And I just have so much respect for anybody that serves their country in any capacity. And I want to do what I can to raise awareness and money potentially to those causes.
Certainly. No, it's very well said, and a very valuable cause indeed. I wanted to segue into this. Demonstrates in part your incredible physical prowess. Can you just tell our viewers and listeners the weekend you have recently just finished, Matt, talking about physical endurance?
Yeah, so this past weekend, and you're catching me at such an interesting time, because I've never done anything like this before. I'm training for June 29th is this event called the Spartan Death Race. And it sounds crazy. It is crazy, I guess. It's like a 3 or 4 day. They don't even tell you how long of an event it's going to be, but it's basically like a military style training over the course of this 3 or 4 days. There's no sleep. You're outside in like the backwoods of Vermont. And I'm trying to train myself in a brutal way just to mentally be strong enough to handle this event. So this past weekend, starting Friday morning, ending Sunday night, I went straight through, and I did not sleep Friday night. I did not sleep Saturday night. I had this small cabin. It was basically like a big tent out in the woods, like an hour outside of my hometown. And I just immersed myself into some really difficult training. And it to your point, like, it is physical training, absolutely. But to me, it's more about strengthening the mind. And that's why I do it, to come out of there feeling more confident and feeling now like I can handle anything. If I can handle, 60 hours in the woods with no sleep, whatever life throws at me, whatever, if it's an injury or if it's a breakup, I feel more prepared to handle that now that I've gone through some of this difficult training.
Yes, no, thank you for sharing, Matt. Obviously, we find you today and we talk to you today as this man renowned for, as you say, this physical and mental endurance. But can we have a little bit, if you like, can we be privy to your backstory? Is it fair to say you were always this resilient and inspirational?
No, absolutely not. And I think I appreciate you asking. And I'm an open book about my life. I would say lazy for a lot of my life, for lack of a better word. I think being real with myself has helped me.
Yeah.
And so from 2002 to 2011, I slowly became an alcoholic. I went off to college. I started partying, drinking, getting in a crowd, which was my own doing, that enjoyed late nights partying. And then once I graduated, I told myself, I'll just get a job and I'll stop drinking. And it wasn't that easy. I kept going down this path of drinking way too much, and it just consumed me for 10 years of my life. So when I look back at it, I don't regret it because I think it taught me so much, and it's still a driver for me now. But I was overweight. I was 55 pounds overweight. I didn't really do much to provide value to other people. I was a hater. And it pains me to say that, but it's true. And I was the guy that saw somebody succeeding and hated on that. And it was because I wasn't doing anything myself. And it was that moment. I don't know if you ever had one of these moments where you look in the mirror and it's just something clicks and it's like, oh my God, I have the power to change with the help of the big guy upstairs. It's on me. So that accountability shifted everything. And I realized that the blame game doesn't work. Pointing fingers it gives everyone else the power and it takes the power away from you. So as soon as I looked in the mirror and pointed the finger at myself and said, you can change, this is possible, life started to get a lot better.
Wonderful. And Matt, if you will, can you tell us a little bit, because I know, again, the viewer, the listener will find great value in this transitional stage, because many of our friends join us either at the start of that self-introspection, as you say, that getting real, that stop blaming others, looking at themselves. With that being said, yes, today you are all these things. You're a speaker, a well-renowned speaker, Ironman, all of these things, author, and so on and so forth. But before this, when you were still working a 9 to 5, what were some of the principles or practices you used to begin getting a hold over your life and maybe alcoholism in particular?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I think there's a process there. It wasn't like I looked at myself in the mirror that morning and poof, everything was perfect and I figured it out. I think one of the major keys, and I actually just gave a speech about this, I call it being the general of your army. So we all have a choice of who we surround ourselves with. And there's Tony Robbins' mentor said this, that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And to your point, we were talking offline about you're being intentional about who you allow into your life. I was not intentional about that at all. So that shifted a lot for me to get around people that were healthy, that wanted to grow in life. And I never had that before. So becoming intentional about who I surrounded myself with just helped me level up. And I don't even know that I realized what I was doing at the time, but I got a mentor, which was huge. I got a mentor I was probably in my mid 20s at the time. He was in his mid 50s. So he'd been on the planet a lot longer than me. He'd seen more than me. He'd been unhealthy and then healthy, and he'd become a huge speaker. I saw him speak. That's how I met him after he stepped off stage. So I think who we surround ourselves with, to answer your question, is a big help. And then I think having a vision of where you want to go. I had no vision in my life when I was an alcoholic. I was just living day to day. I wasn't even living. I was just existing. And then it's like, okay, now I have a mentor. He believes in me before I believed in myself. Now I have a vision. Wait, I can be healthy. Like I can get healthy. That's possible. he helped show me the way. And when you get that vision, and it just becomes real, it's like, now I believe it. And then it's just about taking the actions to get there. But it was not a quick process. It's a process that's still going on, as you know, like growth never ends. And that's part of why I love it. But I think a big key is getting around people that you want to be more like, and that are really playing the game at a higher level than you.
Brilliant. Again, excellent points. Nicely made, Matt. So thank you for sharing. Now, if we just can come to one specific part of what of the many things you do today with your speaking, if somebody was interested in that, and again, I'm more interested in that journey, as we all know, it's not linear. With your speaking, you didn't just wake up. You've said that, you know, you changed who you were hanging around with. You had a vision and the importance of a mentor. Tell me, with the speaking particularly, was there any places, clubs or organizations you joined to help begin pushing that forward?
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm just going to say this. I don't know if you speak in the UK, but you would be amazing on stage. I don't know if you already do that or not,
This is
but
something that I
bring it,
definitely
man.
want to do more of, God willing. And yeah, I think it's a powerful way to reach more people
It
effectively.
is. It is. And so to start that story, I was in 2011 when I had that moment. I looked myself in the mirror, and then I started making these changes in my life. I had a group ask me to come speak. That was the first time in my life that had happened. And they gave me 15 minutes to speak, which that doesn't seem like a long period of time. I just told this story a couple weeks ago. I spoke for 2.5 minutes and panicked and just said thank you and walked off the stage. And then I sat there. It was a breakfast meeting, and then I sat there like an idiot for the next hour eating breakfast. Like, they have to be thinking, why did he only talk for 2.5 minutes? But I had no confidence in myself. I didn't know what I was doing.
No.
But I was okay. I'm like, okay, I got to get better at this, because I do have a story, as I think we all do, to inspire other people. So I joined Toastmasters International, which they are international, they're worldwide. And I'm sure there's a club, hopefully somewhat close to you. They do a lot of meetings virtually now, but it's an organization that I think it's the most value for the dollar that you could ever invest in yourself. And it's extremely affordable. They basically focus on public speaking, leadership, and communication. And I basically obsessed over this organization for 12 years of my life. I was just giving speech after speech after speech. And the first 10 or 15 or more were horrible, James. They were so bad. I wish I had video evidence to show you how bad they were, but that's part of the fun. There's no perfect speech. It's just fun to see if you can continuously get better. So it's been a slow process, and one that I love. And I actually just gave a keynote last week that was probably the best speech I've ever given. And I know that there's still room to keep going. So yeah, I think public speaking has changed my life from a viewer of other people, and also going through it myself.
Thank you for sharing that. That's such a beautiful thing. You said, I just want to touch upon something you said there, which I think is very important, about that everybody, that word very deliberately, has a story to tell, and an inspiring one at that. Are there any, just briefly, quick tips on that point that the listener, the watcher could begin to discover their own? I think that is powerful.
You know what? I'm gonna pull this out right now. Now that you asked that, and I think that's so true, that everybody has not, I mean, a story, but probably hundreds of stories. So a mentor of mine told me to do this. I have these index cards right on my desk here, and I don't know if you can see, but
Yes.
all it is stories. It's stories that I can pull out that I've experienced in my life, and it's not like they're all running 100-mile stories. They could be, you walk down the street and helped somebody pick something off the ground and hand it back to them, and they smiled at you. Like, that's a significant story. So I think in writing down on index cards these stories that I've been blessed to have, and some of them are setbacks, some of them are successes, some are a combination of both. It starts to make you more aware that stories happen every single day to all of us. And it could be it could be anything. It doesn't have to be something huge. It could be a simple story that you like. I'm mentoring a young woman that's a speaker, and she tells a story of she drives the same way to work every day, every day, every day. And the one day she was supposed to go off a different exit. And since she's so used to getting off to go to work, she did the same thing without thinking, and she missed the exit. And it's like, that's an everyday story, but we can relate to that. So I think writing down your stories, thinking about, you could go back to childhood. I told a story about when I was in 5th grade, and it was the first embarrassing speech I ever gave. Just pulling these stories out, I think can be helpful to then recognize when something happens in your life that it's worth jotting down. So journaling is a big deal to me too.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I found that personally useful, that index cards. I think that's a beautiful thing. And as you say, something called there's the miraculous in the mundane I often come back to. And so many people are looking for these climbing Everest moments. And yet, as you say, it's the everyday that, dare I say, as a speaker, where they could connect to a potential future audience precisely because it's a shared experience, Matt. Would that be fair to say?
I think that would be extremely fair to say. And I've heard some speakers, extremely powerful ones, sharing stories that will give you goosebumps. That is probably something we've all done. And that's a great point. It does not have to be climbing Mount Everest or swimming in the Great Barrier Reef. It can be something very, very, very simple, and that can have an impact on other people in a big way. So yeah, I think small habits and small stories can still yield huge results.
Yes. Speaking of those small beginnings and how they all add up, if we were just to rewind, again, we've touched upon some of your past, Matt, but looking back again, we've examined how you got yourself out of some particular ruts, the discipline, the mentors, the so on and so forth. Sometimes I find it interesting reverse engineering. Can you now see some of, with the benefit of hindsight, which is ironically always 2020, some of the behaviors that our younger audience members and listeners could glean that you would do differently before the more unhelpful habits took shape? Some of the habits that led you into the more destructive behaviors. So perhaps they could potentially save them from going through as many months, nay, years of pain. Is that possible to look back on?
The answer is definitely yes, as far as looking back on that. And there's a lot of things I could probably have done differently. I think one of the things, and I like talking about this a lot, is taking inventory over where you are in your life as far as the different buckets of life. Let's say it's health, relationships, finances, your career, all these different buckets. If you're in school, and just see, where are you, and be real with yourself. If you're unhealthy, then maybe you're a 4 out of 10 on the health scale. And then you can realize that's an area I need to improve. I think I was so mindless in living every day for those 10 years from 2002 to 2011. I didn't stop at all to just think, what do I want? Like, what do I want out of life? Where do I want to go? How do I want to be remembered? Who do I want to associate with? I didn't do any deep work on myself. And I think had I done that at any point, but done that at least, let's say, once a year or every 6 months, I could have made these shifts before a 10-year period of time. So I think anybody that's young, and first off, that's amazing. If you're young and listening to this, you have time on your side, whether you're in your teens or your 20s or your 30s or 40s. We still got a ton of time, right? We got a ton of time. But think about, I think one of the hardest things to do is, what is success look like to you? Because when you're growing up, a lot of times maybe it's your parents or a sibling or a teacher that says, here's what success is. Well, maybe that's success to them, but that doesn't mean that's what success looks like to you. So I really didn't do any internal growth work for the first 25, 27 years of my life. And I think for the young people, that's a big help. I'll share one other thing, which is reading books was a big help for me. I don't know if you read a lot, James. I
Yes.
assume that you probably do. Yeah, I had
Yes.
a feeling you probably did. I fought reading for 30 plus years of my life, and reading books has been such a game changer for me. And it just speeds up the process. So you can learn from somebody that took 30 years to learn something. You can learn what they learned by reading a book in 4 hours. So reading is something that I hope I will continue to do the rest of my life, because it just, you learn from others' mistakes and it speeds up your process to success.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Just to reflect back to you, I love that. What do I want and how do I define success? I think that's very important. I recently came across, well, I say recently, a few years ago when I first heard it, I might not have understood it at the time, but one needs to be selfish in order to be selfless. And what comes to mind, so seemingly when these I questions, it seems initially at first blush selfish, but like the old adage, put one's own oxygen mask on first before we can help anyone else. So defining what one wants, and then what do you consider? Would it be fair to say, Matt, that how one defines success has actually in your life changed over the years as well?
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. And I love that, how you said that about being selfish to become selfless. And yes, and I think how you define success. And by the way, I'm learning this now. So this is a process I've been going through a lot. It can change, right? Like how you define success can absolutely change as life goes on. I'll give you an example. Like my sole focus has been like, I want to keep speaking, get in front of, groups and inspire from the stage. And now we hosted our first live event in March, sort of by default. And now it's turned into these adult adventure camps that we're hoping to run 2 to 4 a year. And I just never expected that to happen. So I think once you go all in on you, then doors start opening that you may not have even seen opening. And I'm sure there's others for you, for me, for everyone listening that haven't opened yet. And they may not open for 10 more years. But if you stay on the path, it's exciting to see what potentially may happen.
Yes, no, that's so beautiful, Matt. And tell me, in talking about encouragement, you are known now world globally as an encourager, as a motivational speaker. Was there anyone in your life, looking back, that was a motivational before your mentor now, before the professional mentor you spoke about? I'm thinking about as a young Matt. Was there somebody you watched on TV or in real life that was motivational and saw the potential in you?
Oh, that's a great question. And the answer is definitely yes. I've been blessed that both my parents, specifically my dad, has been like an idol to me. He's still living. I'm blessed to have, I'm 39 years old, so I've had my parents a part of my life for 39 years. He definitely, and he still is somebody that if I said to him, I want to go fly to Pluto, he would probably say, go make it happen. Like that's possible.
Yeah.
So he was always the one that he would encourage me no matter what crazy idea I had. And I have to say that I'm very blessed to have had that, because I cannot speak to growing up in an environment that didn't have that, because I know a lot of people are not as lucky as I am. And I think that's a part of the reason why I want to keep getting out there, especially to the youth, and maybe being that one person. And you're the same, that some 12-year-old could hear something that you say or I say, and maybe they don't have that encouragement, but then you say something that triggered, oh, wait, oh, it is possible that I can do X, Y, and Z. So yeah, my dad and my parents definitely were two people growing up. I had some teachers. One of them, my fifth grade teacher, who I still keep in touch with, was very helpful and encouraging, especially during some tough times that I had at that age. And I think being open to maybe it's constructive criticism, maybe it's encouragement, but people that can help you grow. I almost think it's impossible to do it by yourself. Like we have to have somebody else that believes in us or that can encourage us through. And I've been blessed to have more than one of those people. And I'm still, now you're another one. You're encouraging me in a big way. So I think it never ends. You can always be on the lookout for these people that can help you rise higher.
Yeah, no, thank you for your kind words, Matt. Look, we've looked into a little of your past, and we've come almost full circle to the present day, and we will talk again. But as we draw to a close today, Matt, could you tell us about any sort of immediate future plans? You know, what's Matt looking forward to? You mentioned these sort of adventure things going on. Can you talk a little bit more about the near future, please, and what you're up to?
Yeah, so I'm looking at, I'm a believer in this as well. I have a big poster board that says impact 100 audiences in 2023. And so I write down every audience that I get in front of. I write down the date, who it was, and what I spoke about. And I'm right now at 85. So I'm 15 away. I'm going to have to come up with a new chart because it's been a great year.
Brilliant.
So I get so juiced up talking about it because I think it's partially because I was such a bad speaker 12 years ago and the growth that has happened. And also there's just something to me about being in front of an audience and having maybe that one person come up to you and say, I needed to hear that message at this time in my life. And maybe that's what they needed to hear to move them in a more positive direction in their life. So that's the main focus for me for the rest of this year, is to get in front of as many audiences as I can, be as vulnerable as I can to tell the real story, not just all these successes that I've been blessed with, but what are the screw ups and what are the difficulties that happened before that? Because that's, I think, where the reality is. And it's not all sunshine and rainbows. So getting through the difficult times has helped me enjoy the sunshine a lot more. And so, yeah, just getting up on stages and encouraging people, as you said, inspiring people to keep growing, keep leveling up, and keep enjoying this crazy ride we call life.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant, Matt. I'm so excited for you and proud of you. It's amazing. Now, just in complete closing, and obviously we looking ahead now, and I'm talking about decades ahead now. But you know, when it's all said and done, I think it's sometimes quite powerful to think about this. How would you, Matt, actually, when it's all said and done and you've lived your life, how would you like to be remembered?
I think about this probably too often. And so I'll answer it with a habit that I use, because I was thinking about this recently. I have this thing, it's in my bedroom, but it's called a smile file. And what it is anytime somebody reaches out to me and says something that I did or said or whatever, encourage them or inspire them to take an action, I either write it down, or if it's a text message, I print it out and I put it in this smile file. And I've been blessed that over the years, I've done this for probably 6 or 7 years. There's a decent amount of sort of what excerpts or quotes in this smile file. And I read one every morning. Like, it's one of the first things I do in the morning. So I think when I'm on my deathbed, to me, it's the smile file, because those are the people that I was able to positively impact over the course of my life. I get goosebumps talking about it, because I think there's nothing and this is my opinion, but there's nothing more powerful than having a positive impact on somebody else's life, especially when maybe they're in a hopeless state. And it's that one phone call, it's that one podcast they listen to that you help them with, that encourage them at the right time. You never know when that moment is, or who that person may be. And it may be somebody you never hear from that hears something that you say. So it may not even be in the smile file. They just, you put out the right content at the right time that they heard, and it encouraged them. So I think when I'm at the end of my life, it'll be I'll be on my deathbed just flipping through the Smile File and saying my life mattered because of the impact I was able to have on other people.
And it's beautiful. No, thank you, Matt. That I really do. I want to thank you first and foremost for your time today. I want to sincerely thank you for being you, for shining your light bravely. I know it takes great self-introspection, and as bright as you shine, you have had to mind those gloomy depths. And I respect that. And but I wanted to thank you, as I say, your time today, for doing the work you do. We will have another conversation, but for Matt Scoletti, God bless you, brother, and thank you for your time.
God bless you as well. I can't wait to have you on my podcast, my friend. We're going to keep chatting.
No, definitely. And I'll attach some links to where people can find you on social media, brother.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me again.